Hey everybody, it's Keisha Ann and I'm the MF and editor with the Fuzzy Cow Podcast. And this is the Fuzzy Cow Podcast, a very special first episode, and we're so excited to be here. It's the platform where whether it's a bear or a bull, we're bringing you crypto news you can trust. And today we have a guest with us, our very first guest ever. So super exciting. Also a sponsor of this episode, Hairiest. Would you like to say hi, Javier?
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to be the very first one in this podcast that I'm sure is going to be the first of many. Keisha is just amazing, and I look forward to see what comes next.
Thank you so much. And we would be remiss if we did not say that Javier Caceres is the COO
Um,
and co-founder of Interim
COO.
CFOs.
Yeah. Yeah.
COO, right? Who is so graciously sponsoring this episode. And not only are they sponsoring this episode, he's actually coming live from Washington, D.C., where the Crypto Banking Compliance Summit was held today. The second annual, correct?
That is correct. It is an amazing conference about crypto and compliance, as the name says it all. It brings a select group of people, and we really go deep into obviously compliance and how to improve the ecosystem.
Absolutely. And Interim CFOs is a sponsor of that event as well. So if you guys have never heard of the Crypto Banking Compliance Summit, but you're interested in what the pathways are that are being built between the TradFi industry or traditional finance and decentralized finance industry, it's definitely an event to watch and to follow. And maybe try to get a ticket next year. And with that, we're going to kick off the top of the show. So the very first segment on our show from now on will be our new segment, which we call the ticker. It's where we bring you 4 stories from around the world that are just happenings that are going on in the crypto sector. The first one is actually talking about this presidential election. The polls are in. Our friends over at Polymarket say that it was Kamala for the win on Tuesday night. And that's great. Kamala Harris winning the debate. But what does that mean? But what does that mean? How does that translate to the cryptocurrency markets? A lot of people feel like a win for Kamala is not a win for the cryptocurrency industry. And ironically enough, even though it was promised and though both candidates have made, not only suggestions and speculations about what their policy would be around cryptocurrency, they actually didn't mention it at all on Tuesday night, unfortunately, which left a lot of people confused, which, albeit it was lively enough as it was. But I do think that many were listening. The 93 million crypto holders in this country were listening to, and expecting at least something to be said. Javier, what do you think about that? Did you get to tune in? How did you feel about that? What the presidencies might look like for the industry?
So I mean, it's a loaded question, but let's look at it from a more holistic viewpoint. Presidents don't really have as much power as you may imagine when it comes to setting up rules and agenda. The power is really in the Congress and the Senate. Okay. Having said that, okay, uh, one administration can be more hostile than the other one. Okay, and obviously, what we have seen in this administration, that has been the tone, quite hostile to the industry. Um, Trump embracing crypto, I honestly believe that it was because the right move. I mean, whoever is advising him, that was the right move to create a differentiation between the opposite party. Uh, are they in love with the industry? I don't know. I haven't really seen that love. And typical politicians, they're gonna say what they need to say to appeal to whatever group they need to say. I think actions speak louder than words. We know what Kamala and at least under the Biden administration says, feels based on the actions that they have taken. We don't know if everything that Trump is promising is really going to happen and it's going to be as rosy and as great as everybody wants to believe.
Absolutely well said. I mean, and to your point about actions, I think that approach and strategy speak a lot to like actually behaviors as well, right? Because as you said, there's definitely been a lot more forethought and a lot more conscientious, I think, from the Harris campaign about how to approach the conversation to make sure they're just not being, sensational, I think is what you're describing. And not kind of just being like pandering to the people who they think want to hear what they want to hear. Unfortunately, on the other side, right, there's definitely one angle that says that Trump has been way more action oriented in terms of, having the Trump coin, which has already had its issues. So take that for what you will. You know what I mean? And then, of course, this Defiant Ones platform that he's announced, which again, as you say, take that for what it's worth. But we do know that especially our Bitcoin maxis in the crypto industry, right? They're kind of looking to that and kind of excited by that. And that is very, very interesting. I think that you bring up some very salient points about how to consider maybe what it is we're experiencing. But I do hope that they get to talk again, that we do get to hear something more substantive from both parties, because I don't think there's a way to move forward in this country ignoring that conversation. But to take it to the rest of oh, did you have something else? Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think we will. Okay. And again, I think they like to stay in this ambiguous state, so they don't have to commit to anything. I think we need to be in the lookout for is our congressman or senate, um, what they say, because they can be really influential in setting up policy, and it's probably easier to convince them to show them the benefits of the industry to their local economies, than what we can expect from any of the presidential candidates. Okay, but at the same time, I do hope that if Kamala wins, the fact that she is younger than Trump, that she will be more open to the great benefits of the industry.
Yeah, and also just to say on that note too, I mean the thing that Crypto for Harris, which is she tentatively named her policy or platform for crypto, it just speaks to more consumer safety, right? And I know that like compliance and regulation again, you're coming from the crypto banking compliance, right? It's not always the sexiest thing. It's not
Yeah.
something, it's compliance and regulation. It's certainly not the ethos of crypto culture overall. But I think we all know that it's going to have to be in order to scale and to be able to continue to grow. And to your point again, where policies are concerned and the average person and how that trickles down, I think that that's something that, that's dealing with safety and trying to cut through red tape and trying to make sure that everybody can be secure is more in line with what we would want from, as an industry moving forward.
Absolutely. I mean, that is one of the barriers that we have for mass adoption, right? Well, let's start with banking. Banking is a
Yeah.
huge barrier for
Yeah.
mass adoption. And think about
Right.
this: cannabis is um, illegal at the federal level, okay, and yet there are hundreds of banks that are willing and able to bank cannabis companies. Right now, there is nothing illegal about the crypto industry, and yet I can count with one hand how many banks are willing to bank the crypto industry. So that alone is a huge barrier that we really need to deal with soon if we want to see. Forget about mass adoption. Adoption.
Yes, being able to get off the ground. Yes, absolutely. Into this idea, right, of what this looks like when we don't have these things in place. The next story actually comes from Brazil, where authorities have blocked 1.6 billion. They anticipate it might be up to 9 billion in reals, which is the currency of Brazil, worth of crypto in fiat in nationwide raids. This basically, yeah, this is cartel criminal activity that they have found that have included hundreds of shell companies, lots of, I guess, fraud, securities fraud, and other manners of clandestine activity. Extends all the way from Cali do Sol to Orlando, Florida. And they're still going right now as they're finding actors and agents in this mass conspiracy to basically pocket these profits in crypto from the Brazilian government. And so, one thing that I think is really interesting when we talk about use cases in America, it's very hard for people to grasp at a grassroots level the interaction of crypto users and being able to spend crypto like cash. Where in places like South America and places like West Africa and certainly in Southeast Asia, there's almost no line of differentiation between the two now, right? Like crypto is their currency of convenience. And in places like Brazil, prior to these raids and before people
Hmm.
do start to get into more of the higher level organized crime with it, they can't even track it. They can't even tax it. They can't account for it. The hand to hand payments that are being made in crypto, that's a world that we want in a way, right? That's kind of like think when a lot of people in the crypto sphere in the United States, when they fantasize about a world like that, of course it comes with its pitfalls and its caveats. But do you think like, because I always say the world is round, right? The globe is round. So what's happening in one place is certainly going to end up making its way around to the other. Do you think like that's the future of the U.S. like government raids that are not SEC based but like federal based? You know, like
Again, that's a loaded question. So let's go back a little bit, right? So uh, at the beginning, when you were framing the question, um, I think it's important to think about the fact that developing countries, right, uh, use crypto because it's more stable than their currencies. Okay? So they have to learn about it. They have to educate themselves about it. Okay, and because of this forced education on their own, right? um, they're able to utilize it and understand it better than your average American and any individual in a developed country in which their cash is just as good, it's just as stable, so they don't have to worry about it.
yes,
Okay.
that's
Now,
it.
is it gonna be as ubiquitous? Yeah, probably it will be, but the beauty is that with blockchain, we can track absolutely everything, right? And really, in order for this mass fraud to happen, right? At some point, they need to interact with a bank that is going to
Right,
convert
right,
that crypto, whatever that may be, into fiat. Okay, and that is the point where compliance comes into hand, right?
right.
they
True. There's no
they
privacy
at
yet.
that point is where they can
Yes.
catch the bad actors, but of course there is a lot of things that we could be doing to make sure that process happens quicker and it's easier to sort out the good actors from the bad actors, but it does start with education as a whole.
Right. Absolutely. Which is going to get into the fourth story. But before we jump there, let's just take it back to the United Kingdom, where they just announced earlier this week that they have finally settled on a classification, a formal categorization of what cryptocurrency is for personal holders, which is personal property. So that'll be really interesting as well. I think that's kind of, now obviously in the United States, we have crypto as an asset class where it can be considered property, or it can be considered something that, can be an item that you can sell off in order to get a profit off of. And you get some type of cash exchange for it. But again, like I just see all of this innovation in this economic space, right? And it continues to feel like the United States is a third world country. Every time I see a story and it's like, why aren't we there yet? And I think when you think about the larger narrative of the economy,
Yeah.
right, it's kind of scary for those of us in this country that are watching like all of these innovations happen, which I imagine is a new thing for Americans because typically we're at the forefront and cutting edge of what's new. So it feels very strange to be left behind or to see these other countries so readily adopt what should be fairly easy given our infrastructure in this country. And I think you kind of spoke about that. But any thoughts about the UK and the personal property class for tokens? Any limitations that you see with that?
No, I listen. I love it because that has legal ramifications. It has tax ramifications, and again, that story is in par with the story from Brazil, or at least the question that you asked. Because they after Brexit, the UK had a lot of issues with the valuation of their currency, and it doesn't surprise me that a lot of British nationals jump into crypto to ensure that they were able to hang on to their value, and that's why you see a lot more adoption, and also they can see that any country who is friendly to the industry attracts billions of dollars in economic activity, and that's also what they're trying to do, to take literally business away from the U.S., because we have been so hostile in the last 4 years that any country that opens the doors and makes it easy for anybody to own crypto is a welcome heaven.
Yeah, absolutely. In all of this, I mean, you said very important things again that kind of like sum up. And there is a thorough line through all of these stories. But to bring it all the way back home, it's reported that Americans are estimated to have lost 5.6 billion in cryptocurrency scams in 2023. That's up 45% from 2022. So I think that in what is the nature of most of these scams, you might ask, because that's an important point of context, right? Like when we say crypto scam, what do we mean? Well, it's all mostly investment scams that Americans feel privy to, which I think is really interesting because in 2022, I imagine a lot of those scams were meme coins, and a lot of those scams are probably more akin to the gambling and casino side, whichever side of the track the scams have fallen on. Unfortunately, I do think that what unites them is that there's this idea that they can get rich quick. And I think that is one of the biggest things with crypto that has to be educated against, especially as the country does continue to go towards, it feels like at times, right, throttling towards very difficult economic times. People need to know this is not a get rich quick scheme and that you are in a very volatile, very volatile waters. Certainly going to cause yourself a lot of harm if you're not being conscientious and cognizant about how you're dealing with these financial tools. And as a CFO, I'm sure you have to like share that with your clients all the time, right?
Well, luckily my clients are crypto savvy, so I don't have to tell, I don't have to explain those
Great.
things. But honestly, we can get rich quick schemes have been happening way before crypto was invented. And I have to imagine that even fiat currency was invented. There was some sort of get rich scheme with
Or cow or
chickens,
shell scam, yeah,
chickens
right.
and potatoes. I don't know, like whatever they were using. So we cannot blame the medium for the actions of the few bad actors, right? And it's unfortunately, really unfortunate that we can fall in. But again, it goes back to education, and it is a process, and there is also a
Yeah.
generational divide. You know, grandpa and grandma are having a hard time understanding how that works, and they're probably never gonna get into that. But mom and dad, uh, they still have time. They can get into it if we make it easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And make it more accessible, which is why I think that things like ETFs are great, right? I think it's a great thing that, banking giants like JP Morgan and Chase and all these other financial institutions are starting to like get into it, right? Whatever way that's comfortable for them, which is ultimately whichever way that's most comfortable for their consumer, these are things that, many, many things are going to lead to adoption, right? But certainly the bank taking more of an assertive standpoint from it and saying, we are going to lead the charge so that you don't get lost in these waters, right? Because that's all people need is an alternative. They need the option. Most people will go to the bank rather than go to some random broker, right? Or some weird exchange that they've never heard of, right? Or like, listen to their grandson, like say, grandma do this, right? Like, so I think that it's very, very encouraging. But to almost be at double the people scammed in the year before, I think that just signals that there are a lot of things that need to change, whether it's language, right? Maybe some of the ways that we address some of these things. I know that's a large part of adoptability is being able to create those parallels linguistically, right? We have a hot wallet because we have crypto cash. That's a direct parallel to having a real wallet for real money, right? But everything can't be a one-to-one because some of that nuance is lost, and maybe that's where the danger is found.
You made very very good points. But I want to double click on the ETFs. The ETFs is not really for the masses. Okay, there is very few people that really understand ETFs, and those who understand it are using it, and they are money savvy. Okay, so we need to dumb it down, and we need to make it way easier for regular Americans to do regular transactions such as buying coffee or very simple stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and
Right.
also take advantage of the economic freedoms that crypto is supposed to deliver, being able to gain more in interest and do atomic swaps if that's what they're
Yes.
into
That's it.
via crypto, but it needs to be easier for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is why interim CFOs are the sponsors of this episode and why we are speaking um, to Javier, because that is really the crux of the Fuzzy Cow as a podcast platform, right? It's about enlightenment and entertainment, but ultimately it's about education and about closing some of these understanding gaps. Because as a language person myself, obviously with the communities that I represent, that being Black people and women, right? There's a lot of colloquialisms there and a lot of command of language that are just naturally inherent in both of those communities. And by empowering, those individuals, you kind of really bring something that can go back and proliferate the rest of the world culturally. And so I think that, again, like you're saying, education, dumbing it down, right, keeping it simple, and just adjusting some of the language so it's not so tech savvy, right, not so tech heavy and abstract. It's going to go a long way in terms of what we as an industry need. So, I mean, yeah, that was, yeah.
Exactly. And just one correction. I'm sponsoring this not because of that, but because you're a great person, and you totally deserve to be a sponsor. Nothing else.
Thank you. I'll take it. I'll take it. So that, everybody, was the ticker. And if you like those stories, you can certainly find more on our social media channels at the Fuzzy Cow Podcast. You can also go to www.thefzc.io and subscribe to our monthly newsletter or get weekly updates at our Telegram, the Fuzzy Cow Podcast, under cryptocurrency. That's where you'll find that. And moving on. So this part is actually a part that I hope that you can appreciate, Javier, because it's called Making It Make Sense. And really what it is, it's not financial advice. These are just, thoughts and inspirations about how I might approach some of these financial conversations, if it was something I was interested in. And I think that really the first question for most people is, how do you even get your hands on crypto coins, right? Like, I mean, I think that that's, most people's question. Taking ourselves out of it as people who are, in the space, professionals, and have the burden of knowledge. I think most people want to know, how do I get my hands on my first coin? And I think if we're being real about it, a lot of crypto and a lot about crypto, especially when you see it from the media, feels very expensive to get into, right? Maybe people don't have like awareness of what exactly it means, but I do think that there's a divide when people see the way that money is made in crypto, and the way that money appears to be spent. And I think whether the cost is extra money, or whether your issue is that you feel like it takes, money to purchase tokens that you don't really understand, or if you've heard about, again, some of the financial disasters that we've mentioned and that you hear about other people falling into, it can feel very overwhelming, right? And a lot to like sit down at a computer and consider how to get started. And so here at the Fuzzy Cow, have no fear, because we're going to help you with that. I would say, just like as a point of context, that this is probably most relevant to those who make about $50,000, and don't want to bear the inherent risk in purchasing digital assets. Maybe also don't want to have the circumstances to sit and wait and hold tokens, which is obviously what's advised, right? But everybody doesn't feel like they necessarily have the time to see an investment grow like that. And if that's the case, that's completely fine. That's natural. It's a natural position to be in, from wherever you're at in life. But there are still ways you can get your hand on your first token. The first is you can do learn and earn programs. And what does that mean? Well, some websites offer you the chance to learn about different cryptocurrency tokens. And while you're learning, they give you just a little bit at a time so that you can start to build up your portfolio. Not enough for you to take it to the bank, not enough for you necessarily to cash out on. But if you want, to say, hey, I have some digital assets, I have now a wallet that has a token in it, this would be a very easy way. To get started, you can go on websites like coinmarketcap.com. Obviously, Coinbase is one of the more popular ones. Coinbase Earn, to be specific, where there, again, educational initiatives and rewards for just sitting there and reading material. And I would say, again, if you don't have a lot of money to spend, but you don't want to be left behind, or at least you don't want to get the feel of, you want the feel of what it's like to just know what we're talking about. It's a very low risk, low barrier entry, that's valid, right? The second thing that you could do is sign up for an exchange, right? There are a lot of exchanges that promote various cryptocurrencies. Might not necessarily be, again, the currency you're most interested in, like a Bitcoin and XRP or something like that. Some of the more popular ones. But Binance, Coinbase, they're definitely, again, going to give you small incentives when you start trading, right? And that can make it feel a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more safe so that you get the hang of it without, having to throw in the entire kitchen sink, right? Like, nobody's ever advising you to do that. Nobody ever says take all of your, nobody in the history of the world that's really a good person is ever going to tell you to take everything that you own to do anything. That's not what we're doing here. But you can start small, and you can be rewarded for your small start. And again, you can build up to it and see how you feel, even if it's with a lesser token. And an altcoin, as we call them, or meme token, which would be one of those tokens that are kind of like pumped by popularity as opposed to actual value. That, these things are, again, just to get you familiar with the space, help make you more native. And the third and final thing that you might do, if I was in that position, would do, is try out a crypto credit card. If you already have a credit card and you're already having a handle on managing your credit, we are in a time and a space now where there are definitely cashback credit cards. So, they give you crypto, some type of value back for what you spend. So just like any other cashback program where you get points or a percentage at the end of each quarter or whatever your annual period is that you've used your card, now you can ask to have some of that converted into crypto for you. Gemini actually offers a great card specifically that does that. It's pretty popular. And again, don't get it twisted. Some caveats apply to this credit card as they would to any other credit card in the world. Please don't go spending above your limits. You know what I mean? Trying to get as many coins as you can back. No, it's not going to work like that. And that's not the best route. But it is cool to just consider that if you are already holding a credit card and it's something that you would have done anyway, why not, already get rewarded in crypto for what you do already? And that's what I might do if I was in that position. Any thoughts on that, Javier?
Yeah, I mean, these are great options. But quite honestly, the my favorite one is just open an account with Coinbase, Gemini, Kraken. These are legit, stable exchanges that offer you a multitude of options. Okay, you can just buy stable coins and just gain whatever interest, 4, 5, 6%, whatever is going on at a time, right? And especially, and again, this is an answer for people who are fairly new or totally new to this, right? So that way they don't have to worry about anything. It's a centralized exchange, so if they lose their password, which they're bound to do it, okay, they can always call, right? And somebody will allow them to recuperate their money, and I think that puts a lot of people at ease. Um, and they have a lot of features in place to make sure that you are not a victim of fraud, right? Their fees are fair. Their fees are very fair, and for a newbie, I mean, that's an easy one, and they can just do an automatic purchase of, I don't know, $50 a month, or whatever they can afford. When I started in this, the advice they gave me is like, don't buy anything that you cannot afford to lose,
That's
and
it.
I'm sticking to that.
Yes, and to that point, Cash App actually has some of the best programs for that. I mean, if you want something truly mindless and truly painless, you can literally go to your Cash App right now, hit round up, switch the toggle until it's on, and you can choose
Yep.
Bitcoin. And literally, whether it's 8 cents or whether it's $2, whatever your balance is at the end of the month, every month they're going to purchase Bitcoin for you. And you'll look up one day, and whatever their rate of exchange for Bitcoin is that day, they'll tell you. But let's just say, at the end of 90 days, you notice you have $20 in there.
Yeah.
$20 in Bitcoin. And it's like, wow, okay. for now, we're getting somewhere. We're getting started, right? Like they also allow you to take a portion of your direct deposits and naturally just purchase Bitcoin for you out of whichever percentage that you set. So again, I mean, there are very, user friendly, um, user friendly ways to get started with this. Truly, newbie friendly tools that are popping up every single day to keep you from being one of that 45%. Please don't be one of the 45%. Like, you have an option. It can be better for you, right? It truly, if people's misfortune teaches you anything, it
Yeah.
could be a guide of what to avoid, right? And what steps not to take. So I would say that if you start to watch it, absolutely.
And common sense, right? If it sounds too good to be true, it's probably not true. Maybe you want to look into it a lot more, you know?
Probably. Exactly. Exactly. And also, too, do your own research. That can never be overstated enough, and that is something that you all will hear me echo on the show every time I'm on it, because you have to do your own research. That means also asking questions about what you read and don't understand, right? It's not just sitting here and listening to this podcast and then, like, play for play, just going and doing everything we're saying. No, if you read an article and you have a question about it, then it's your responsibility to seek further information about
Right.
that question, right? Don't let any stone go unturned where your comprehension is concerned, because this is your
Oh,
money, it's your
absolutely.
livelihood, and at the end of the day, it matters to you the most. So if you found any of that at all helpful, again, you can find this information and more at thefcz.io or on Instagram and Twitter, where we have these in wonderful little slides for you. And they'll be there for you archived for time immemorial. But we have more of that coming. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to the Fuzzy Cow Podcast, where, whether it's a bear or a bull, we're bringing you crypto news you can trust. And we're here with our friend and episode sponsor, Javier Caceres, COO and co-founder of Interim CFOs, a wonderful company that helps customers close the gap between traditional finance and decentralized finance. And we're going to be talking to him in a little bit more about his journey, about what they all offer at Interim CFOs. But before we get into that, uh, we also do this on the show often, where I take a submission from real people about real crypto things. And I feel like, in honor of first, and it being a first episode, what submission is better than one from my own mother, right? My mama had a question to ask, so I'm going to answer it. And that question was, how do you make crypto into cash, right? Seems simple enough on its face, but to be completely transparent, my mother is a 65-year-old woman. I can really dig what you said demographically. It's very correct. Grandmas and grandpas kind of are having a hard time. You have to think that in their day, the most innovative financial instrument was the debit card, right? So for them, this is kind of like going worlds ahead of what they've even imagined possible. And if I were to speak to my mother and I had to answer her, Mama, this is how you turn crypto into cash. It's really simple, guys. First, you have to recognize that you do not have physical money. So you have to understand what that means, that already when we speak about cryptocurrency, we're speaking about something digital, something that's a representation. So it's symbolic. And it's also encrypted, hence the crypto part, right? So that means that you're going to need an environment that takes this encrypted information and somehow is able to change that information from being encrypted to unencrypted or decoded. And then take that value, or whatever value you've assigned to your token, for you, and my mother in this case, make it into dollars that you can then spend. So how do I do that? Well, most of the time in my field, when I get paid, I choose to get paid in cryptocurrency. Again, I have a wallet that I have money that goes into, those tokens go into. The wallet provider then does the job of unencrypting that currency for me, and I decide where and what kind of fiat. So in my case, it's USD. For somebody else, it might be the peso. Somebody else might be the rupee. But I decide where I want that and how I want that cryptocurrency to become. For me, it's going to become the dollar. The platform that I hold my token in says, okay, you want USD out of this? And it does the rate of exchange, and then voila. Next thing you know, I have real dollars that I can spend on face value on my debit card or take to an ATM, which also honors the value that's stated on that debit card. And it's really kind of simple. I mean, in a way, it's almost like what the bank does, because all the money that the bank says you have, you don't necessarily have in your possession. But we understand that there's a value system that's honored by our financial institutions, in terms of what the representation of that value is versus what the actual value of something is. So I hope that that's not super convoluted. And I hope that when she hears that, she's like, okay, I get it. But that's basically what it is. I mean, you have to find a tool. You do need a middleman right now. So that's also something as an industry that we're working to scale, right? Elimination of the middleman, making it easier for you to not need that intermediary to get your token to dollar. But once you have that, hopefully a safe one that's verified and vetted, that you feel safe about, you can take that money and get it out of an ATM and spend it. What would you say about that? Anything that you want to add?
So I would say, Mom, is just another currency that doesn't belong to any country, and just like any other currency, you have to go through some sort of middleman to exchange it for whatever you want. In this case, USD, and that could be a bank, that could be an exchange, that could be fill in the blank. And I will wait for her to see if she has a follow up question after I say that.
This is attachment. We're moving into the abstract as we move into the future. So I understand how that's uncomfortable. But hey, guys, get with it. We're living in the future, right? And speaking of the future, this next segment is called Off the Chain, which is where we talk about how blockchain technology is being used in the real world, or what we call in our industry a use case. And it's just exciting evidence of how these things are being applied every day. This first story is actually going to come to us from the automotive industry, where Toyota and Ford are reemerging as leaders. Now, as we know, back in the heydays of GM, General Motors, and all of that, Toyota and Ford have always been the giants. And they kind of definitely suffered a lull, right, in the early 2000s, and then suffered another lull as a whole, automotive industry post-pandemic. But because they are really advocating for blockchain, and I think it's really interesting, they already, as of 2024 alone, between the both of them, have gotten 43 related blockchain patents, 14 from Ford and 29 from Toyota to be exact. And these patents are intended to help create the pathways that make tangible solutions to things like blockchain. So we're talking about things like ownership of cars, titles, digital storage lockers. Like if you have a car in a warehouse sitting in a dealership, you're talking about taking that inventory and putting it on chain. All very useful things. And again, for those that don't know, blockchain at its core is a ledger. That's what it is. It's a record of information that's meant to be immutable, right? So if you think about it in the use case, again, of something like a car title, which talks about ownership, you would want that to be immutable. And if you think about something like storage, you would want to have your inventory accounted for. So these are all things that Toyota and Ford are doing. But I think the most exciting thing that they're doing is creating plans for driverless technology, which we know Tesla and everybody's been working on that for a long time now. But they're actually trying to develop plans for driverless technology or blockchain infrastructure in cities that would allow for a grid for cars to be more autonomous. And I think that would be very, very interesting. The intersection, no pun intended, of driverless technology and blockchain, right? I think that'll be a very unique use case, and I'm so excited to see who gets there first. Any thoughts about that?
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So my background is accounting, right? And before I was doing crypto accounting, I was certainly dealing with a lot of inventory related accounting. Okay, and it's often a mess. Okay, it doesn't matter how good you people are keeping track. There's always something off. It's hardly ever right on. And as you can imagine, these companies have huge inventories, and keeping track of that is a job and a half, right? So bringing the most perfect ledger in the world to solve the inventory tracking of this is a brilliant solution, and everybody should be thinking in those terms. I mean, I would love to see the social security system on blockchain. That would eliminate all sort of fraud. That would make it a real perfect system, and it would save Americans billions of dollars. But I think we're far from getting to that point.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. But even when you talk about something like leases, right, which again, a place like France is already ahead of, where they allow you to have your
Yep.
lease as a smart contract, right? And you just automatically set those parameters. There are things like, I'm telling you, one day you're going to wake up and you're going to be like, what is this smart contract this company's demanding of me? And then you'll know Like they tried to tell us at the fuzzy cow, didn't they? They tried to say that this was imminent, and just never say that nobody ever told you
That's
anything,
right.
because that's what we're here to do, right? So here we are. This next section is all about you. You've been such a great guest so far. You've had a lot of insight.
Well, the bar is really low, right? I'm the first one, so I mean, I'm the best.
You're going to set it real high. So everybody has something else to look up to, and you've kind of dibbled and dabbled and like alluded to your background, but really, just tell me about what was the start of Web3 and crypto and stuff for you.
Yeah, I started about 9 years ago. I started working as a part-time controller for a company called Wire. Okay, Wire then grew and grew, and Wire was a payments company in the crypto space. Eventually, I worked full time, became the CFO, and I was there for a quite a long time. It was a magnificent experience because I had the chance to work with all sort of projects, different L1s, and a really amazing group of people. And that really made me fall in love with the space, what we're building, and see real change, right? See how so many people around the world was benefiting from this. So after that, then I left and I started my own company, in which the idea is to bring all this knowledge that I was able to accumulate from the accounting and finance, viewpoint, to help new startups with their operating models, helping them set up the accounting hygiene that they need. To make sure that they know exactly what things are, and they have a good visibility. I mean, we tell our customers that we want to help you look around the corners, because if they don't have a handle of their finances, then they may overspend, or maybe they're not spending enough, or maybe they're spending in the wrong places, right? And then to that layer, we bring the tax portion, so we can help them with all their tax compliance that they may need, and any other advice that they may require in the journey of growing a company, and especially a crypto company that moves so fast and it has so many curved balls thrown at you.
Moving parts, right? Like you do. And it's really not advisable again. And this is where there's personal finance or for a small business, right? For an entrepreneur enterprise, right? Like you need help in this space. We all need each other because you don't want to be caught out there alone. And there are a lot of pitfalls if you haven't picked that up by now, right? And so
Yep.
companies like Javier's are definitely doing what they can to, again, keep people safe, because that's what this work is really ultimately going to be about. And before we go
Yeah.
any further, right, because this is the fuzzy cow and it's looking very hairy economically in the markets right now. Do you think that we are in a bear or a bull? What's your take on that? And why do you say whichever you say?
Well, I think we're still in a bull. Okay, and uh, from the macroeconomic viewpoint, okay, I feel like at least uh, the fact that fiat currencies around the world are not so stable, people are looking for other options, and what a better option to hedge volatility in their own markets than the crypto market. Okay, so I believe that that's gonna keep on bringing more people into the market, and I do believe that that input, that inflow, is gonna come from overseas for the most part. But now, from a microeconomic perspective, I work with a wide range of crypto companies, and all of them are VC backed. Okay, and VC money is back on the streets. There is a lot of money flowing into these companies. There is a lot of great projects. I think the VC money has gotten smarter, and they're being a bit more cautious, but they still have a lot of it. And once they find the right project, they dump a lot of money into it. So this is gonna generate more opportunities, and is going to bring more people to the market. So I feel like we're in a good spot. So I'm feeling quite bullish, to be honest.
Okay, well, that's good. That's encouraging. That's great. Everybody has such a vastly different take, so that's actually encouraging to me. I like to hear that because, like I said, part of the reason I created the show is even for me, a professional in the industry. Sometimes I look out and I don't really know what I'm looking at. You know what I mean? So I think that that's encouraging for sure. And you're right. There's certainly a lot of money and a lot of projects being invested into. There's definitely a lot of tokens being created. But I think that what we could see is more apps and more apps, less infrastructure. And if we're going to focus on infrastructure, then we need to make that infrastructure tighter. You know, what do you think the biggest barrier to entry is? I think it's one-click apps. I don't think we have enough Zelles or P2Ps and stuff like that.
I said it earlier in the show, banking. We need more banking. That's the biggest barrier. I mean, once we solve the problem, you're going to see a dominoes effect of great things for the industry, and we everybody should be helping or pushing their congressmen, their senate to just make sure that banking is more available for this industry.
Absolutely. On that note, how would they get in touch with you? How can you be reached?
I am super easy to get a hold of. Intern-cfos.com. That's my website. My Telegram is intern CFOs, no dash. Twitter is intern CFOs. So, and you can always get a hold of me at Javier at intern-cfos.com.
Absolutely. Also, if for some reason you didn't catch that the first 5 times, he's also listed as a sponsor at the bottom of the Fuzzy Cow website. So you can just click on his logo and also go directly to his website. It will be the Interim CFO's logo. Please, yes. If you have financial anything, I mean, is there anything else you would like to add? I was going to shill you a little bit more, but please go ahead.
I remember we're not just CFO services. We help with all bookkeeping, accounting, taxes, for the business and personal taxes as well. And we help you figure out, your gain and losses in crypto, which is something that a lot of people don't have the time or don't want to do. Or if they do it, they're always wondering if they did it right. So we hold their hands and make sure that they got it correctly. So.
Listen, again, I cannot overstate the value and importance of having somebody to hold your hand. This is not a space that you want to walk alone in, especially not as a new person, right? There are a lot of creepy crawlies underneath the bed. So please, if you have any questions, and even just with the stories that we report on in our newsletter, the Crypto Current, we don't talk about projects that we don't personally believe in, right? Or personally have a relationship with and definitely know to be reputable, right? Like, this is so important. I just want you again to know that here you can trust what we're saying. You can trust the people in the places that we're telling you, or the projects that we're telling you to look into because they have been vetted by us. And vetted by people who know what to look for. So I just want to say that again, because like I said, I had to show you, show you just a little bit more because interim CFOs is the real deal and they have a lot to offer. And I think that it would not hurt anybody to look at what that is. I got 4 more questions for you really quickly. I don't want you to think about these. I just want you to shoot them off the top of your head, okay? This game is called This or That. Ethereum or Bitcoin?
Ether.
Cookies or ice cream?
Ice cream.
Horror or comedy?
Uh, Tough. Comedy.
I would have said horror, but that's okay. And dream vacation or your dream house?
Vacation.
Hmm. Interesting. That was great. I mean, I hope y'all enjoyed that. Javier, you have been a wonderful guest, a great sponsor. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. I just want to give a few closing credits again. Javier is coming from the Crypto Banking Compliance Summit in Washington, D.C., where Interim CFOs was also a sponsor. We would like to thank Interim CFOs and Javier for being such a great guest and a sponsor for the very first episode of the Fuzzy Cow podcast as well. Be sure to catch this episode and more at our headquarters, www.thefzc.io. Also, you can check us out on all of our channels at the Fuzzy Cow Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, Insta, X, Telegram, and TikTok. And be sure to sign up for our monthly newsletter, The Crypto Current, exclusively at the FCZ.io. And you can also find it at Telegram by the same name, The Crypto Current. Thank you so much, everybody. And until next time, that was the Fuzzy Cow Podcast, where, whether it's a bear or a bull, we're bringing you crypto news you can trust. And until next time, I'll see you guys. I'm the MFN editor, signing off. Thank you, Javier. Good night.